Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Project E46. It feels so good to be saying that again. I know there's been a huge gap in between videos. Now that I've moved into my new place and I've gotten necessary parts off the parts car and gotten rid of the parts car and got this thing running with those parts, I'm just really excited to be working on this thing again, driving it around again, and I have a few drift events signed up on the calendar. And that means it's time to start actually doing a few more upgrades to this thing. Now there are three key areas with a E46 that are going to be notable improvements for drifting. One, power. The non-M cars aren't particularly powerful, and this 328i is no exception. I mean, it makes about 200 horsepower, and that's just, it's fine, it's not a lot. So a bit more power would be nice. Obviously angle would also be nice. A full angle kit is definitely in the future for this car. And the last one is definitely the handbrake situation, because obviously with handbrake entries you want to have a good hydro or something going on there. Though I wanted to skip a hydro for the time being just because I've not had enough time to research what works on the E46 platform. But I did want to do something to improve the stock handbrake, just because the stock handbrake in the E46, unlike a 240 for example, just isn't particularly strong, not very good for locking up the rear wheels and doing handbrake entries, things like that. And so since a hydro is not on the agenda for now, I figured I'd do a handbrake extension. Now these are pretty common. If you've ever watched Chelsea DeNova's videos on learning to drift with an E46, you see he ends up applying something quite similar, just a big extension on the stock handbrake that gives you more leverage, kind of makes it easier to rip. I was gonna make one because you can kind of just make one out of a pipe and kind of jam it on the handbrake and call it a day. Though I found out through watching a Speed Academy video that there are a few nicer aftermarket solutions in the market that are relatively inexpensive and just look nicer than a bent pipe over the handbrake extension. Specifically, the guys at Speed Academy tested out a handbrake extension from Nerptech, and that's what I got here. It costs around 50 bucks delivered to your door. And this is a slip-on extension that slides over the stock handbrake and then gives you this BMX lever you can rip. It also includes a drift button. That way you can retain the use of the factory handbrake when it comes time to park the car at the end of the day. So let's install this thing in the car and see how it works. Okay, now hopefully this is a simple process because Nerptech and their infinite wisdom does not include any sort of instructions with this or on their website. Kind of just arrives in a small bubble package, and that's kind of it, along with some stickers. So let's unpackage this thing, wrapped really well. Granted, it's not much to break, it's made of metal. I guess more just for scratching it up, stuff like that. Okay. So this is the Nerptech extension. It looks quite nice. This is a nice BMX hand grip here. It looks like it's been powder coated flat black. Looks pretty simple, pretty clever. We'll see how well it installs on the stock handbrake. So first thing I gotta do is get the handbrake cover boot off the handbrake. I believe it just kind of pinched on. I've taken this all off before when I did the shifter rebuild, along with all the rear end bushings in this car for the whole drive line. Let's see if I can still do this properly. Yeah, piece of cake. Yeah, basically just there are clips on the front and rear section of this. Kind of just slide it forward and slide it back, then kind of pull it right up through here. Okay, next thing we have to do is figure out the handbrake button, because obviously this includes a drift button. I'll explain this more in a sec, but for the time being we had to remove kind of the button here that actuates and unactuates the handbrake. Now on some cars this is just screwed in, it's threaded, and some cars it's a press fit, so hopefully it's a screw-in, so it's a much easier thing to fix. All right. Okay, so I'm running into the same issue that Speed Academy was. Nerptech offers this drift button, but unlike many cars, you can't unscrew the handbrake button in an E46. It's telling that because on Nerptech's website they changed the product description since I bought this to just saying E36 handbrake extension, so maybe they realize it's an issue. If this is like the Speed Academy piece, it's basically press fit in there, I have to yank really hard. Oh hey there, I'm back. So it turns out after some furious Googling that I did this wrong, and you're not supposed to just pry this thing out. Since BMW never meant this button to be removable or serviceable in any way, they didn't really intend for you to take it off. So what you're supposed to do is to actually cut through it, and you'll see there's this inside piece here that this piece is press fit into the button. Now what you're supposed to do is cut through this outside piece, basically cut a slit into this inside piece and then pull the whole thing out or just drill it out. Now what I ended up doing was breaking it off. Now the problem is this also broke off the little line in here the button presses in the first place. So I've now broken my handbrake. That is not great. Oh well. On the up and up, that means I can now install this. So let's get to it. Hello there, different day, different clothes. Unfortunately, as I was recording, the microphone on me died, so I filmed the whole episode, but there was no audio or where the video originally cut off there. No worries, I'm gonna pick it up where the original video just left off and kind of give you my tips and tricks now that the Handbrake extension is installed on the car. Okay, so here is the finalized product. Again, it's a pretty notable extension on the stock Handbrake assembly because normally it ends here, but you can have all this extra leverage now. Nice, smooth action. And again, it's a ton of leverage. I did want to give you a few tips and tricks on the install. Nerptech includes these two little set screws here. Now, there are obviously no holes in the E46 handbrake assembly here, but there are instead two little detents. They're kind of notches in this metalwork. So what you should do is you should loosely thread these screws in and wait for them to kind of catch on those detents. Then just kind of treat it like a press fit and screw them down until they're kind of tight and hold the handbrake in place. Doing that has not caused any problems. It's not wobbled or shifted in any way. Though I suppose if you were really paranoid about it, you could always drill little holes in the handbrake assembly here for these to go all the way through. Once these are in place though, you need to be aware of the angle or the orientation of the handbrake. So if you look at it straight down, you see you actually have the handbrake canted slightly towards me, towards my leg, and that's for a very practical, pragmatic reason. One, there's the ergonomics. Having closer to the steering wheel is just very comfortable for me in my seating position, but there's also the shifter clearance. Now I have a totally stock shifter, so it's pretty long throws, and the problem I had is if you put this oriented directly straight up, it would actually hit the shifter. So if you had this in the complete straight up orientation, it would actually hit it going into second, or at least your hand would hit it, and that's not very comfy. So I just kind of loosened these set screws up and kind of just rotated it till it cleared the shifter. Even now it's a little bit tight, only for reverse though, which isn't really a problem. See, it just taps going into reverse, but you're not really usually going for reverse super fast. I didn't really find it to be much of an issue. I like the position here, I find it very comfortable. Though, talking about it's one thing, I think we should hop on the road for a little bit and show you how this bad boy works. Okay, so unfortunately I've moved to a new neighborhood and it's a bit less convenient rather than my old neighborhood where there's a spot 5 minutes away where I can just go rip it for a couple minutes and no one will bother me. So I can't like slay the car around my neighborhood unfortunately, but there's a couple little spots where I can do a quick little bit of U-turn action and just show you the efficacy of this handbrake. Because even just driving it around the block, I've been really impressed with this thing. I mean, the stock handbrake, for perspective, even when drifting, you'd be going extremely fast and already have the car in angle to get any sort of locking ability with the stock handbrake. But I mean, even now, I can be driving in a straight line. We're going 30 miles an hour right now. If I clutch in, it just locks the rears up just like that, no problem. And what I've even found is that with this extra leverage from the handbrake extension, I've actually been able to lock the rear tires up while still coasting in gear, which is impressive because normally, you know, whenever you pull the handbrake and drifting, you have to clutch in, otherwise you're fighting the mechanical drag of the drivetrain. But You know, even in gear, this extension gives you so much more leverage. You can still lock the rear tires up while in gear, which is pretty impressive. But tangentially, I know this car's an old beater, but something about it is just so nice to drive when it's running right, like right now. Alright, so a little corner coming up. Let's just kind of do a little handbrake baby entry. Oh, yeah, that works pretty well. Wow, I mean, I was only going maybe 20 miles an hour, but still, if you just clutch in and rip that handbrake and pitch it, it just locks right up just like that. Obviously, when you're drifting, you're going faster than 20, so that effect is going to be magnified even more. Like I said a few minutes ago, I originally filmed this whole segment without knowing my microphone had died, and I was actually able to get some pretty gnarly tire lockups and little drift even through the neighborhood. So really pleased with the Nerptech Handbrake Extension. It's pretty inexpensive, but pretty effective. You should be careful to not break your handbrake button like I did. So yeah, pretty stoked with this thing. Inexpensive, seems to work pretty dang well until I kind of figure out a hydro solution, or if I even want to do a hydro in this car. I think that's all I got for this one. Please stay tuned for the next episode, because I'm going to be heading back to the track in just a couple of days. And, you know, with this new handbrake extension, the headers, and just the general maintenance I'm doing to this car, it feels better than ever. And I'm so stoked to get this thing back out on track again and just completely slay some tires. So look forward to that. I know I am. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned for the next episode. Please subscribe if you're not already. That helps me out a lot. I think that's all I got with this episode. See you guys next time. Bye.